Hey. All right, so this is live number 415. I'm going to give it just a moment, give people some time to hop on. Once again, random time, and I realize that it's not always going to be conducive for everybody, but that's the wonderful thing about the replay. So I'm going to go ahead and share this, and I encourage you to do the same. So if you would, please share. And once again, if you see the live tag, whoop, there we go. If you see that red tag there, then that means that you are live here with me. If not, then you are watching the replay. And if you're watching the replay, just hit, hashtag replay in the comments. Okay, so I'm going to share this to my newsfeed. I'm going to go ahead and share this to a group or two as well. And we are going to talk about holiday weight gain because I know this is something that is on everybody's mind. And I'm going to help put your mind at ease as well. So one more, and then we will rock and roll. Okay. Awesome. So say hi when you're here if you are here with me live. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the holiday weight gain. It's really rather simple. Okay. It's very, very, very simple. Probably more simple than you even realize. And I think that it's a factor that most people don't even consider half the time. But it always comes down to a plan and your mindset. It's just those things right there, plan and mindset. So if you have the mindset of the whole, well, I'm just going to go ahead and enjoy myself. I don't want to stress out. I'm just going to eat whatever I want and I'll take care of it later. Kind of like the credit card mindset, let me buy it now and pay for it later. That is where you're going to get in trouble. If you don't have a plan, that is where you're also going to get in trouble. So it's really all about having a plan, period, end of story. So please say hi when you're here. So let's talk about, okay, so how do I have a plan and what mindset should I have going into things? Okay. So first of all, when it comes to the overall mindset, okay, so let's just kind of get this out of the way because it really has a lot to do with your thoughts and your thinking. You are going to have situations where you're around people that are going to have that mindset. Oh, I'm just going to, you know what? I just don't want to stress out about it. It's the worst thing I could do right now. I don't want to even stress about it. And it's that, like I said, it's that type of mindset that's going to get you in trouble. So if you're around people that have that mindset, that have that kind of carefree, it doesn't matter right now, it's the holidays, let's just enjoy. And then they're going to be the ones that look down at their waist at the first of the year and say, oh my God, where did this extra roll come from? Because trust me, you can gain weight really fast. I'm sure you realize that. And it'll be very easy to do, because when you're around all these things, cakes, cookies, mashed potatoes, gravy, all of that. I'm not saying not to have any, but what I'm going to help you with is being more mindful about everything. Okay. So hi, everybody who's hopped on. Happy that you're here. The baby's actually sleeping right now, and my husband actually is home today. So it's actually helped out a little bit, but she is really, really, she's not doing that great. But the great news is my dear friend and my Dr. Bretz, had messaged me so kindly and said, hey, bring her in tomorrow, which just is last night. Bring her in. He said, who do you come see when you don't feel good? And I says, you know what, you're right. And he says, it's funny because oftentimes us adults, we don't think along those lines that, he could help her too. So he said, get her in here. And so we took her in this morning. And she's resting and hoping that, I know that what he gave her is going to help her. He picked up some bacteria in her tummy. And so I know that's going to help a lot. So back to the whole holiday weight gain hullabaloo. So let's get back to where I was at. So first, it's all about your mindset and a plan. So I want to focus a lot on your mindset because that is going to be the biggest one that you're going to have to overcome. That's the one that you have trained and that you probably have a same pattern that you've been following year after year after year after year. And until you begin to start, retraining and redoing and, acting differently, I guess you would say, at family functions, and also retraining your family and friends because they're used to you being a certain way too. You know what I'm saying? Like for me, I know I was always the one, oh, we can count on Kelly. She's always going to party with us. Kelly will for sure have a shot. Oh yeah. We better have wine because Kelly loves her wine, or we got to have this beer because Kelly, you know what I'm saying? So because I trained them, because that was how I was year after year after year. Now I'm showing up differently. I'm not sitting there and partying. I'm actually drinking water, and I might have a glass or two or something, not 10. You know, I was always the one that would be drinking and forget to eat. You know what I mean? And so that's not who I want to continue to be, because I don't like the way that it feels. I want to feel good. I want to feel good the next day. I want to be present. I want to remember stuff, you know. So if you can relate to that, then, you know, this might be a good time for you to start doing the same, retraining yourself and retraining others. Is it going to be uncomfortable? It might be. It's, you know, kind of like that uncomfortable hallway that I've talked about, but what have you, you know, you make up your mind, you set the rules for your life, period. You are the rule book maker. You set the standards for your life. You are in charge of your boundaries. You are also in charge of your destiny. Life is not happening for you. You are creating it. Okay. And so just kind of like right now, where we are currently sitting, or let's just, you know, let's say for example, like my daughter, you know, there's a decision that somebody had made along the way. And it could have been something from the air, but it's probably more likely that it came from something that she put in her mouth, because let's face it, that's, you know, the age that she's at. Or maybe my son, you know, he's very famous for trying to put his fingers in her mouth. So that was a decision that one of them had made, right? You know, and I could be way off base with this, but I'm just trying to give some tangible evidence to you. What the point that I'm trying to prove is there was a decision that was made, ultimately having a consequence. Okay, so let's just say, for example, it was because she was messing in the dog dish, and that dog dish gets really nasty. I mean, let's just, you know, call it for what it is. My clients know that I'm always struggling to get her out of that dog dish. And so let's say her action or her choice to play in the dog dish ultimately ended up having her sick for all these days. Same thing with you. The actions and the choices that you make are, you know, your life right now is a reflection of your past choices and actions, right? So we can apply that same thing to the holidays. This time right now. So the holidays really kind of kicked off at what? Some people could say Halloween, but some people might say, you know, Thanksgiving. So whatever it is that is your holiday season. Some people say the moment that football started. You know, because football season is kind of a tough season for a lot of people, you know, because there's all these social events that happen. So when it comes to your mindset, you have to make a decision. Where do you want to be at the end of it all? You know, when you get caught in the moment at, let's say, your family gathering, you know, you're there for what, 3-4 hours, maybe 6 hours or something, depending on how your family operates. But during that short window of time, the choices that you make during that time are going to affect you weeks later. Because when you make a choice to, let's say you have stuffing, and that's just your thing, you know, stuffing is your thing, and you have an abundance of it, and then what's going to happen? You're probably going to feel full, maybe a few hours later, depending on your carbohydrate tipping point. You know, that's something that is individual to each one of us. And you need to figure that out by your own biofeedback and such. Will depend on, it might make you crave later. It might trigger you into having cravings the next day, right? So one of my biggest things is always like chips and dip. That's like one of my favorite things during the holidays. It goes back to when I was a kid. You know, my parents, they really didn't keep things like Doritos and chips and pop and stuff like that in the house. But on Christmas Eve or Christmas, I was always allowed to, or given the choice of, where I could have like Doritos and Faygo Red Pop, or Rock and Rye was really my thing of choice, right? And so even to this day, when it comes to holiday gatherings, I instantly want, now instead of the Rock and Rye, it's more sort of cold beer and chips and dip. So it's kind of the same thing. It goes all the way back to when I was a kid. You know, it's just the poison, the drink poison kind of changed, right? So But I do know that if I have a handful of chips, I'm very mindful of it now, and if do I want some chips, then I'll have some. I'm not demonizing any foods. I eat what it is that I want to have, but I just make sure that I'm not having the mindset of, oh, it's the holidays. Yeah, I'm just going to have what I want and then I'll take care of it later. Or who cares? It's the holidays. There's the who cares? It's the holidays. That's just an excuse. So I don't like the wagon, but people they can relate to the wagon talk. I'm on the wagon, off the wagon. And I'm telling you to just not hop on that holiday wagon when it comes to your eating. That you need to have more of a sense of control and purpose, just like I talked about with your goals. You need to be more purpose driven with your goals. So you want to attach a purpose to this holiday season, and your purpose could be this season, it's going to be different. I don't want to overindulge or feel like a stuffed sausage after, or drink too much or have too much pumpkin pie or whatever it may be. Okay. So your mindset and going into things is huge. And that is a factor that most people do not think about. Okay. So that's number one. Number two is having a plan. And the plan could be, okay, I'm going to have a buffer food before I go. What is a buffer food? A buffer food is something that that you would eat prior to going. So, kind of, for example, my husband sometimes drives me nuts. He'll be like, "We gotta go. I'm starving," and I'm like, "Well, why didn't you eat? Why are you not eating something right now before we go? Why are you starving? There should be no reason for you to be starving." So that's a prime example. Don't go into these things starving. I always make sure that, before we go, I've always eaten my normal things, my routine. Always make sure that if I can get my workout in prior to going as well. So, trying to stick to routine as closely as possible. That's another important factor. But you can have a buffer food. So back to the buffer food. A buffer food could be something as simple as a protein shake. It could be, a small little portion of chicken and vegetables or something. A protein bar, whatever you feel will help buffer your hunger. That's what it is. It'll help buffer your hunger. So then you're not going starving. You're just setting yourself up for lack of willpower, and you really need to be set in a position where you've got all of your ducks in a row when it comes to putting yourself in a position of success. Okay, so buffer food. But just make sure it's not a trigger food, because sometimes a buffer could be somebody's trigger. An example of that would be like, for example, my sister, she really likes to have a piece of chocolate at night. Now she can have just one. So that's a buffer for her, because if she didn't have just that one piece, then she might reach for cookies and eat 10 cookies. But if she has just one piece of chocolate, it's a buffer for her and she's good, right? So somebody else could have that one piece of chocolate and then they might want 10 more. Do you see? So you have to, kind of figure out like what your buffer foods are. So they could mean different things to different people. So it just kind of depends. I don't think any source of protein or vegetables is going to be a trigger food for anybody. I think they'll all be buffer foods. So, it just kind of takes time to figure out what those are for you. Okay. So again, number one, it's your mindset. And it is about your control and your choices and really thinking of the consequences and how do you want to feel and what it is that you want your life to look like in the near future. Okay. If I overindulge in drinks, then I know that I'm going to be down and out for 10 days. I just know that about my body. I'm going to look like shit. I'm going to feel like shit. And it's not only going to affect me physically, it will affect me mentally. It will pull me down into a lower vibration, and my thoughts and thinking are not going to be that pretty either. Okay. So that's not something that I want to really dance around. It's just, I don't want to live there anymore. If I have, a bunch of, if I have a handful or two of chips or something, then I'm good, right? It doesn't mean that I'm going to, drive, on our way home and tell my husband, hey, stop so I can go get so I can have some chips later. You know what I mean? Like, I know what my tipping point is when it comes to certain foods. I know to just have a couple of bites of certain things and put it down. But again, it takes time to get there. You got to get away from that all or nothing mindset. period. Okay. You have to get into that point where you are, shit, God bless America. Blake's on his way home. I just saw a text message come across. Sorry, I just saw a text message come across and Blake's going to be wondering when the elves are, and I forgot to put them out. Sorry, I just got all sidetracked. Oh my gosh. So I have to cut this short before he gets home. Okay, so mindset. I think we got that. I really hit home on that about getting away from that all or nothing. Get away from that. It's the holidays, all that hullabaloo. Having your plan. Have a buffer food if you need to. I would highly recommend something that would be, protein and fiber oriented, maybe even a little bit of fat. You could have like an apple with some peanut butter, a nice protein shake, chicken, maybe just a little bit of chicken with some vegetables, something along those lines. Also having that plan, if you know what kind of foods are going to be there, then plan what you're going to have and stick to it. Stay loyal to yourself. Stay loyal to yourself. Have a plan. You can also bring appropriate foods that you feel that you want to fill your plate up with. So, for example, if we're having a family gathering and I'm not the one that's in charge of food, I will absolutely send a message and say, okay, what's on the menu? And then when they send back what it's going to be, I'll say, okay, this is what I'm going to bring. And the majority of the time, it's like a vegetable tray and a salad. Okay, because oftentimes the foods that are served are full of starch and fat. Maybe one protein, but the sides are always starch, corn, stuffing, potatoes. There's not a lot of vegetables and things like that. So I want to make sure that I come prepared so that I can, be set up for success, and then I can make my choices accordingly. And again, if you're going to make a choice that is something that is not in your best interest or not going to serve you well, you don't get into the mindset of, well, that's it. I had a bite of a piece of pie, it's all over with, loser, I'm done with. No, if you make the decision to have it, then live with that. Don't live in this guilt and fester over that. It's like, hey, I made the choice, let's move onward, let's go. Okay, that felt good, great. Always remember about, I want to feel good. So feel good about your choices, feel good about having the bite and putting it down. Instead of, it's not going to feel good to you if you say, I told myself I was going to have a bite and I had 2 pieces. That's not going to feel good, right? So you have to always remember, all right? And don't get into the position where life gets in the way and convinces you that, having 10 pieces of pie or 10 drinks or whatever it may be, or Sally Sue sitting next to you, oh, it's the holidays. What do you want, a diet? You're always going to have those naysayers, as I call them. So be very mindful of who you are around, who you share that insight with, because people are always going to have their unsolicited advice and opinion. So keep that in mind. Okay. You don't want to get stuck in that. Mindset, prepared, planned, buffer food, and also be mindful of where you're hanging out at the gathering. And it could be something, a family gathering. It could be if you go out to eat, kind of maybe set a time limit. Like, hey, the workplace is having something at, the local pub and we're going to have this and that. Well, then you need to, plan ahead and look at their menu and know exactly what you're going to order and set a time as like, okay, well, I know that if I stay past this and this time, I'm going to be set up for greater temptation and I'll eat more, or I'll drink more, or what have you. And just make sure that when you're at the holiday gathering, and just don't stand next to the snack table, or don't sit at the table that's got the snacks just sitting there. So then you're just going to mindlessly eat. Okay. So I hope that these tips help you. I think that I covered a really good amount of information for you. Just following those tips alone will absolutely 1000% help you. And one last thing that I want to leave you with is hydration. So if you continue to stay, good and hydrated, and always take like your drink with you, like I always have my Bubba cup around, take that along with you so that you have something that you can continuously, hydrate with. And, also, kind of fill up your tummy a little bit. Okay. So if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you so much for tuning in. And once again, let me know if you have any questions. I'll talk soon. Bye.